Welcome back to my channel, and for today's video we're going to be doing a little bit of a throwback reading vlog where I basically just read books that I used to love back in my young adult / teen years. I'm still technically in a young adult year, but because that's pretty much all I read, but exclusively reading books that I remember absolutely loving when I was younger. So I'm thinking like in middle school and high school, I have a specific genre in my head of like teenage books I would read back in like middle school and high school. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing with this series of throwback reading vlogs, is reading those books specifically. Today's video is centering on two books that I wanted to read, and these are books that I absolutely loved reading when I was younger. And the thing you gotta know about young me back in the day is that I loved reading books that centered on romance. I was in it ever since Twilight. I was in this for the romance, 100%. So when it comes to picking these books, you may recognize a trend, and that is the majority of them are going to have a lot of romance. If not, the romance will be like the center plot here, which is also interesting considering the first book that we're going to be reading for this vlog. So the first book that I'm going to be reading is called Wicked Lovely by Melissa Marr. This is an urban young adult fantasy. We're following Aslan, who has the ability to see the fae. So this book is about fae and fairies, and this ability that she has is called the sight, and it's been like passed down from generation. Her grandmother had it, her mother before her had it, and so they've made it a rule that she should ignore fae at all costs. Don't let them know that you can see them, because they're attracted to that attention and they will basically drag you into trouble. So rule number one of having the sight is to not let them know that you have the sight. Enter Keenan, who is the Fae Summer King. Each season has a specific king or queen. So like there's a winter queen, we got the summer king. And so Keenan is looking for that one chosen girl who is going to be like the true summer queen that will restore his abilities. But of course there's that one bitch who does not want that to happen. And so the story basically follows Keenan trying to convince our main character, whose name is Aslan, that she's the one and true summer queen. She should marry him in holy matrimony so that they can rule the summer fae together. We're gonna ignore how I look because I've been cleaning all morning and I look disgusting. And I'm 74% of the way through Wicked Lovely, and younger me was just like really in it for the romance, and even that is pretty subpar. Like, this guy is so obsessed with her, and here, let me just, so the guy, the fae guy, is like so obsessed with her, and he's like, you're like the chosen one essentially, and we need you or else like the fae world is going to shit. And it's like supposed to, like, okay, that in and of itself isn't exactly like romantic, obviously. But I think that should have been played out more, because the book is trying to make it seem like this is a romance book, and that this central plot of I forgot his name already because it's some basic ass name. Her relationship is supposed to be romantic in any way. And that is just not the case. I'm naive and was only reading this for the romance, so now rereading it, I feel like I can appreciate the world building. I don't even want to call it world building so much as it's like a world setup that's being done in this book. This is technically book 2 in this series. The first book I think is called Ink Exchange. I'm not 100% sure. And so in terms of reading this as a second book in a series and in this world, I feel like it should have been doing a lot more in terms of world building. But again, it's not the worst thing. I'm actually quite interested, and it does make me curious to see if I would like to pick up other fae-related books today. But we'll see. This book is probably not going to get anything higher than a 2-star on this reread, but I'll keep you updated. I still have a couple, I think I have like an hour left. So we'll see how this goes. Nothing really happens. I think that's my main gripe with this book, is that nothing happens. Like, is that this girl can see the Fae world, and that's like she has the sight, basically, and that's like a huge thing that's never happened with any of the girls that this guy has picked, that the Fae King has picked. So this marks her as like different and could be like the savior to the Fae world. But that's pretty much the entire book. Like, the entire book is just them going back and forth, and how she's like, no dude, I don't want you, I don't like you, like, I don't even like Fae, and I'm not here for this, I'm not signing up. And he's just like, but you will. Like, there's no choice. Like, this life chooses you, and you're basically, like, done. We just got to a part in the book where we find out, so okay, it's already told in the beginning that her mom is dead, and she never knew her father. And we just got to the part, I totally forgot that this happens. I guess her mom was one of the summer girls, aka one of his lovers. Like, they don't even breach the subject of who the dad is. Bro, that's nasty. What the F is happening? In a surprising turn of events, I didn't completely hate this book. I now finished the audiobook for Wicked Lovely, and I think I'm gonna like take back a lot of the criticisms I said from the first clip, because obviously when I first read this many years ago, I gave it 5 stars, if I even really cared about giving star ratings other than saying this was my literal favorite book. Spoilers if you care and don't want to be spoiled for this book. This book does such a great and wonderful thing once you get to like the last third of it that I wish was more prevalent throughout the narrative and not just at the end. I had said that this was a romance story, and for all intents and purposes it is a romance story, but it's an unlikely romance. I would think this book, I think, leads you to believe that the main character is going to end up with the Fae King. And in some ways she does, but not in the way we would expect. And at the minute this happened, the minute she was like, I will rule with you, but I have my like conditions. And my conditions is this is a work relationship. I will help you and help restore things in the Fae world, but I will not be with you in that way. I'm choosing to be with this human. I'm choosing to be with someone who values me for me and knows her as a person and not just her as this Fae savior. I'm gonna give in to you, but also I'm gonna retain some of my autonomy. And so I appreciated that, and I appreciate that young me read this and was like, yes, love it. So yeah, and like I said before, the world building is really great. I enjoy it. I enjoy learning about the Fae world, and I think when I read this as a kid, learning about the Fae world, I was really interested in that. But just because it has a pretty good ending doesn't mean I'm going to rate it high enough. I think on a character level, a lot of the characters were pretty one-note, baseboard level. For a majority of this book, I was saying that Aslan was equivalent to a cardboard box, because there wasn't much to her. There's not much to Seth, who's her love interest. There's not much to... I think if anything, I was more invested in the Winter Queen story, because she has, like, there's just the story behind the Fae King and the Winter Queen. And I know that's one of the books that's in this series, so I might pick that up. I don't know. But I just think in terms of characters, the Winter Queen seemed more developed. Other than that, a lot of the characters in here were very one-note. The romance, even though the romance isn't really between the main character and the Fae King, it's between her and her human friend. Even the romance in that didn't wow me. It wasn't spectacular, great. It was pretty tame, and like I wasn't really rooting for them, but I wasn't saying like, oh, I don't want them together. So it was just, it happened. It was part of the story. I wish there was more substance to the story. I think it definitely picks up in terms of pacing and action when you get to the last third of it. And the first half and like the middle portion just, I mean, you get maybe 2% of world building within this huge chunk of book, and then the last third is when it picks up. So I wish there was more. That's pretty much all I have to say about this book. Not my favorite. I think I'm going to give it a 3 stars, which is not bad. That's not a bad rating. It's pretty average. It was an okay book. It had a lot of flaws. Given the time period like this was in the fucking 1800s. Given that the year that this was published, I think it was pretty great for its time. But now being a different kind of reader, this is just not what I'm looking for. So the next book that we're reading in this reading vlog is going to be Frostbite by Rochelle Mead. And if you don't know what this series is, it's the Vampire Academy series, and we're basically following Rose Hathaway. She is a Dampierre, which is a half vampire, half human, and so it's like a super bred kind of human vampire mixture. And they're trained to be the guardians in the society that has to protect the Moroi, who are full-blooded vampires. The Moroi also have like special abilities, and the Strigoi, who are Morois, or who used to be Morois that basically went to the dark side, and they turned Strigoi. So yeah, Rose is it just feels weird explaining what Vampire Academy is all about, because I feel like there's a lot of people in this community who know what Vampire Academy is, and if you don't, you live under several rocks, apparently. It's all around great. There's also a movie for this, so if you feel so inclined to watch the movie, it's nowhere near as good as the book, but it's a fun time. It's basically like Mean Girls, but with vampires. Good morning, guys. So I just started Frostbite, which is book 2 in the Vampire Academy series this morning, and I'm already 22% of the way in. These books are so fast and easy to read. Things just go by so quickly, and I think that's what I loved about reading these the first time I did read them, was just how fast-paced everything was, which I find so interesting because nothing really happens in book 2 from what I remember, other than like the ending, but we'll get to that. But everything up until the end, or like the last 100 pages, is pretty much just a setup of things to come. And which is interesting, because usually that would mean, oh, it's a pretty boring book, nothing happens. But I'm still entertained, and like I'm in love with the world, I'm in love with the characters, the character dynamics between Rose and Dimitri, between Dimitri and Tasha and Christian. Like, I freaking love Christian Ozera, and I think the first time I read this, I was like kind of iffy about him, and I was more on Rose's side, where I was like, yeah, fuck Christian Ozera. And now I'm like, okay, wait, but Christian's actually really sweet, and he's just always been a very dependable character for Alyssa, and despite his feelings towards Rose, he also, like, he understands that they both have something in common, which is their love and their need to protect Alyssa, I guess. So I just think, like, even their dynamic, like the Rose-Christian dynamic and how that grows throughout the series is probably, like, my favorite thing ever. It's funny because Katie from Kate's Book Date was actually mentioning the prologue of these, and how like the prologue pretty much sums up everything that happened in the previous book, and she was like, it was kind of cheesy to read, and I was like, I don't remember it being that cheesy. But then I read the prologue at the beginning of this, and it's actually very cheesy. I get like Gossip Girl vibes. Like, I want to hear that voice come in and go, previously on Gossip Girl. Like, that's really what it felt like. It was like a previously on Vampire Academy, and it just tells you what happens, and it's such a cheesy way. They're the Dampierre, and here are the Moroi, and by the way, my name's Rose, and I'm 17, and I'm training to be, like, this whole thing. Kind of like a childlike quality to them, and even the books themselves read very, like, oh, this is so high school, and, like, the movie, the Vampire Academy movie, felt very high school to me. But that's how it's supposed to be. Like, book 1 is very much like high school drama. Book 2 is still kind of high school drama. And then everything else after is where, like, the more serious stuff comes in. And then by the time you get to, like, you know, the last couple books, I think Blood Promise, like, things get really darker. And I think it's so reflective of these characters and their journey. Like, it starts off so lighthearted, and like they're so stuck in their little like Vladimir Academy bubble that they don't realize real life's about to kick you in the ass. They have to go out there and face a lot of real world things, and suddenly the tone of the book shifts, and I really, really like that. So for me, rereading them and, you know, reading these cheesy parts and these very like high school drama parts don't bother me as much, and maybe that's because I know where it's going and I know this doesn't persist throughout the entire series. So if you're picking this up and you're like new to the series, I can see where that would be really off-putting, and you might even put the book down and not want to continue reading. I would just say push through, because you're going to be rewarded in the end, I think. So I'm having a great time. I'm going to keep reading, and I'll check back in when I make more progress. So, update time. I am now to the part where Rose got a black eye from her mother, and they had some type of like dinner thing, Christmas gathering thing, and her mom was there, and Rose finds out that Tasha wants to request that Dimitri be her guardian, and that she wants to get together with him and make Dampier babies. And this scene, I remember when I first read it, obviously we're all like concerned about the love interest part, and I remember that sticking with me. I don't remember in that scene how much her mom actually tries to like reach out to her. So it's the scene where her mom comes to her after she's given her the black eye and gives her a gift for Christmas, and it's the evil eye, because we don't know yet, but it's representative of her father and where he was from. But in that moment, she's like trying so hard to connect with Rose, and she's trying to make herself seem approachable, and she's like literally putting down her walls to talk to her daughter. But all Rose can think about is Dimitri and the fact that he may or may not be with Tasha and have babies with Tasha. And I'm like, I understand her line of thought, but I also get really frustrated with that scene, because all she's ever wanted was a mom that would be there, and this is that moment where the mom is trying to in some capacity, and Rose is completely oblivious to it. She's just like, all I can think about is Dimitri. All I can think about is what this means for us, even though there isn't an us. And I'm just like, Rose, you're an idiot. You missed this prime opportunity. But anyways, so I'm going to continue listening a little bit before I leave, but today's my birthday, by the way, just a plug for my birthday. So I am going to be going out and doing some things. I don't know if I'll read any more today, but I will update you guys later when I have made more significant progress in the book. Okay, quick update. I'm now 63% of the way through Frostbite, and I have like no thoughts or like no changing thoughts since my last update, because not much has happened. It's a lot of setup, for things to happen in this last chunk, and a lot of things to be set up for the next books in terms of like, I don't know, it's just a setup. I enjoy Rose as a character so much because, I think I kind of touched on this in my previous clip, but it's so interesting to like a character like Rose because she is so childish and very much a teenager with like teenage problems and dealing with them in a very teenage way. And so typically when I read books and I'm like, oh my god, they're so annoying, and I end up not liking them. But I can't seem to not like Rose. Maybe a lot of it has to do with because I know how her character develops and I know where she ends up. And so I think it makes looking back on her character a very nostalgic thing. I mean, that's the whole point of these rereads, is for that nostalgia factor. But I do think that's playing heavily into my enjoyment of the story. I think if you were a first timer going into this, you would probably hate Rose. I don't know. I guess I would be curious, and I would be interested to see someone's video who has never read the Vampire Academy series to read them and to give some insight on what they think about Rose, but I just think she's a very likable character. Like, yes, maybe we can look at her choices and her actions and be like, oh my god, she's such a teenager, but I can also empathize with those choices and be like, you know what, if I was her age and in that situation, I feel like I would make those same choices, and like they're logical for her age choices. So anyways, this was a lot longer clip than I wanted it to be, just to say that I'm still enjoying it. Not much has happened, but we're definitely hitting that turning point where things happen. Okay, so it's been a couple days and I finally finished the audiobook for Frostbite, and I actually started crying. Like, I'm also just like an old emotional hag, so like don't like take that commentary with a grain of salt. Like the last portion where everything happens and Rose has to follow Mason and Eddie and Mia because they were dumb enough to think, yeah, we can totally handle a couple of Strigoi. And I just think that the emotion and the tension that was handled in this last like third of the book was so well done. And even though I knew what was going to happen, and I knew there was also a lot of stuff I forgot, like I thought the way Mason dies, I forgot it happened like that. So when it did happen on the page, I was still freaked out. And I was like, what? That's how he goes? Like, anyways, I've said it before, but I feel like it needs to be said again, but I love Rose as a character. I think especially after that happens to Mason, her character shift is just like, the grief that she goes through in those couple of pages, and then coming back and getting her Molnia marks, and I am just emotional, okay? It's funny because I was thinking to myself, okay, I want to kind of continue making throwback reading vlogs and reading old books that I remember really loving, and I can't think of another series that I read when I was younger that I would actually enjoy and consume as quickly as I did with Vampire Academy. I think the Vampire Academy series is just, it's so quick and easy. It's so straightforward, and like there's no, I mean, there's like foreshadowing that you can pick up on if you already know where it's headed. But I just think like it's so easy to read and it's so entertaining. Like you're never gonna be like, man, I'm bored, this is going so slow. It's so fast paced. So I think finding another series to add to this little video series that I'm doing of throwback reading vlogs is going to be hard. So if you have more suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. What were some of yours that you loved reading when you were younger? Maybe I've read them too and I'll be like, oh my god, yes, that's a series I want to reread. I have some in mind, but again, none that are going to hit me as much as it has been rereading the first two books in the Vampire Academy series, and the audiobook for the third one I can't get until January, and I'm emotional because that's like when the shit really starts to go down, you know? Like the whole thing with Mason's ghost, and then the whole thing with Dimitri, and Adrian! I love Adrian. It's funny because I remember not really liking the Bloodline series, which is the spin-off series to the Vampire Academy series, and it follows Adrian and another main character that we meet in the Vampire Academy series. But I remember not really liking that series. I think because I didn't really like Sydney, which is the other main character we follow in that series. I don't know. I was also young and like I was just here for Rose and Dimitri, so having to be introduced to Adrian with another girl, I was like, So I may try that series again. Maybe I'll read it for this throwback reading vlog series, but so let's do a recap super quickly because it's been a recap of days for me, but it's like a recap of seconds for you, so bear with me. So we read Wicked Lovely, which I ended up giving 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think I like the direction that the ending took, and it could really lay the groundwork for some interesting sequels and other books in the series, especially if we get to see them more and how their relationship is developing. The main character and the Fae King, Summer King, whatever. It's a slower book that not a lot happens in. It's very much a story that's just about them trying to fall in love but not falling in love. So not that great, doesn't exactly hold up. Younger me was so obsessed with Wicked Lovely. I made my username on pretty much every site Wicked Lovely. Like, my AOL was Wicked Lovely 94. And then the last book that I read was Frostbite by Rochelle Mead. Absolutely loved it. I think I would still give this a 5 stars, honestly. Like, based on my enjoyment level, the pacing of the story, the characters, I gotta give it 5 stars. Like, I don't know what you want from me. The 5 is a 5, dude. That's gonna be it for this throwback reading vlog. Again, leave suggestions in the comments of other books that you think would be really good for this. If you have a favorite from your childhood / young adult teen years. And I would love to know them, and I would love to see if I've read them too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not already. I don't know if this is gonna be my comeback video. It might be, who knows, but there's a lot of cool stuff coming to the channel and I'm excited. Even if only 2 people watch it, I'm excited for it regardless. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.